Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning.
If I can have everyone put their name and their affiliation, hopefully an email address, in the chat box, that would be really helpful for us to take attendance for today. Good morning. Happy Patriot Day. Happy Patriot Day.
Oh, it's Patriot Day.
We're still getting everyone in here. 90 participants in 1 minute. Awesome. So everyone who's still joining, we're putting our names and our affiliation, either organization or if you're a parent or self-advocate, staff for regional center, any of those, you can go ahead and put that in the chat box so we can take attendance. That'd be appreciated. Okay. All right, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I will also ask that those participants mute themselves if you're not going to be one of the people talking today, so that we can keep the audio clear feedback. That would be really helpful. Great, thank you. Wonderful. Okay, I'll give us another minute or so before we get started. Get everyone settled in. Okay. Great. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for the Provider Vendor Advisory Committee. My name is Geneva Ziare, and I am the co-chair of the PVAC. I'm actually the vice president of Manos Home Care. We're primarily a respite agency located in Oakland. We serve both Alameda and Contra Costa counties. We also should have our other co-chair, Sister Mary Grace, here. I don't quite see her just yet, but she's with East Bay Services, and she serves on the board of the Regional Center. So we are gathered today. We've kind of changed the format. I don't know if you all remember from the last meeting, but on August 14th, the PVAC membership voted to dedicate our time today to a listening session regarding racial discrimination and disparities amongst Black service providers and consumers. So we'll be spending most of our time today talking about that. Before, what we'll do at first is we'll review and hopefully approve the minutes from the last meeting. And then we'll also leave some time toward the end of the session for questions and answers. And we'll probably have a few questions and answers during the listening session as well. But further on, if there's other things that come up later on, we'll make sure to leave some time for that. And I just wanted to say, I thought today was a really fitting day for today's meeting, as it is Patriot Day. And I found this quote by one of our American lawyers here that actually had a kind of a philosophy during the 20th century. His name is Clarence Darrow. And he says that true patriotism hates injustice in its own land more than anywhere else. So today's topic for me is pretty fitting. And I really do hope that we are open and that we have people who feel safe to talk and discuss about their experiences. And I guess, Wendell, where you're at, where are you? I think that are you ready for us? Okay, so Wendell James is going to help lead the discussion today. So whenever you're ready, Wendell, you can go ahead and get started. In just a few, I'm going to have everyone get a chance to review the minutes from yesterday. And if there were any changes or updates, now is the time to say it before the membership votes to approve them. Do we have any of PVAC membership, any of the members would like to pass a motion to approve the minutes as they are?
I'll move to pass.
Thank you, Amanda. Do we have a second?
A second.
I second.
Thank you, Leslie and Ramsey. Okay, all in favor of PVAC membership, go ahead and press type I, nay, or your extension in the chat box. Thank you very much. Okay. All righty. Looks like we have approval of the minutes. Yes. Okay. Thank you. All right, Wendell, you have the floor. Take it away. Wendell? Oh no, I can hear you, but it's very.
Can y'all hear me? No,
It's hard to hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's very pixelated.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Okay.
No. Okay. Let me,
These measures are even more important right now. And as we spoke about earlier, Dr. Fauci said,
Hello?
Hello, can you?
Oh, there we go. Much better.
That's better? Okay. 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 So, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Can we, this is not doom and gloom and everybody seems doom and gloom. let's when we're talking about racism and discrimination, let's act like we had a Patti LaBelle concert where we and Beyonce. So, because this is not doom and gloom if we all want to treat everybody right. So let's pick up the room. It's not a funeral. Okay. Now, I would first like to say to all the Black folks within the sound of my voice that, oh, first let me say something important happened since I last saw everybody. I turned 60, and this is what 60 looks like. I just thought I'd let y'all know last Friday. So that's important. Now, to all the Black folks within the sound of my voice, I really need you to show your face, speak up, put a name to your face. I know in the past that retaliation has happened when you speak up, but a lot of you are sitting over there with no referrals anyway, so how worse can it get? So we really need you to speak up, not hide behind a black screen, not hide behind birds and trees, and don't change your name. If you get retaliated against, you gonna know if something starts happening different that wasn't happening before. So I really encourage you. For so long, Black folks have been scared to speak up because white folks have intimidated them. We know that happens. It's happened to me. But let me say, for the purpose of this whole meeting, I am not looking for, and I'm only saying it because you're at the head of the organization, Lisa Kleinbulb. I'm not looking for Lisa Kleinbulb to save me. I don't know what nobody else pray to, but I pray to God. And God is the author and finisher of my faith. So I'm not, because if I left it up to man to treat me right, I would have been done in a long time ago. I'm here by the grace of God. That's just me. So Black folks, we talk about it on the phone, we complain, we send each other emails. This is now the time, and I need you not to be scared and show your face, show your name, send your emails if you have discriminatory stories and issues. Now, I would also like to say, for the purpose of this conversation, not every white person is bad, and not every white person discriminates. If it's not you, then you should feel fine. Having said that, now let's talk about discrimination as it does pertain to the Regional Center of the East Bay and the Black vendors and Black consumers. We also, there's also this thing where, Lisa, we're not gonna expect you to have all the answers today, and vendors, please understand, and I'm sure most of you know the study history, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, they fought and died, and it did, and they fought for years and centuries, and slavery took a long time to get over and all of that. So we're not looking for all the answers within 2 hours. I also don't want this to be a two-up. We talked last week, we're here this week. We don't always have to come to PVAC as the venue, as with Regional Center, there's all kind of venues that we need to also be going to and making our concerns heard. To all the white folks, we're not asking for cars, we're not asking for houses, we're not asking for a bucket full of money. We're asking to be treated fairly like everybody else is treated. That is all we're asking for. And for our consumers, those that are homeless and that see their white counterparts getting stuff, but they're getting denied services, we're advocating for them as well. One of the reasons, Black folks, I don't want you to be scared is because nobody else is any smarter than we are, and we take a lot of consumers, and I can say this with a certainty, we take a lot of consumers, the Black providers, that the white agencies turn down. I can say with certainty, I probably got more than any white agency, the drug addicts, the people out of prison for murder, for stabbing, for assault. I'm probably only, and this is without me doing research, this is how sure I am of myself. That's what happens at 60. I'm probably, if not the only vendor, one of the only vendors that I have a clearance from Santa Rita Jail that lets me go into Santa Rita Jail and assess regional center consumers who are getting ready to get released. And because I've been in there so much, and I go with the regional center, I have gone with the regional center forensic case manager, and then sometimes I go on my own, and they gave me the clearance so I don't have to go through all the, the rigmarole of checking in, blah, 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 do. They know who I am. They zip open the doors. They pull the consumer out. I do the assessment. So I'm saying there's a lot of us who are Black that do grunt work, and ain't nobody knows smarter than us, which is why we're perplexed at why we don't get the referrals. One of the questions that we have for regional center is, Lisa, we notice a lot of white agencies, and they're mainly big white agencies. They come from out of state, they come to the regional center, they get these big grants, get a lot of money, they get filled up in 15 minutes, and then they bankrupt, leave town, go out of town, and then the consumers are sent somewhere else. So I'm wondering, what is the mechanism? How come? And what's perplexing is you have a lot of Black vendors that, for example, in supported living, that are empty, not even at capacity, and yet nothing is ever bought to us, or we're never given a call or anything. But these white agencies come into town and they're filled up immediately. But then they kick half of the consumers out, because I've taken some of them, and they kick them out, or either they go out of town once they done spend up that grant money regional center gave them. So I'm wondering, how is it that companies come into town, get everything, but yet you got people right in town who have a history with you that are vacant?
Hi, Wendell. Are you wanting me to answer in the moment, or were we going to do that in question and answer?
You can. Oh, well, no, yeah. You can. Yeah, you can answer in the moment.
Yeah, I think you raise an important question, and I think a lot of any of the grant funding that regional centers receive comes from the Department of Developmental Services. And it is tied to specific projects. It is not tied to specific providers, but we are required to have a request for proposals for any of those funds. And anyone who is interested is able to apply for those funds. And that is a process that we go through with submissions, as well as with a review process and interviews of people who've applied. So I think the first thing I'm looking at is, do we need to open that up? If I don't have the numbers, but I think we should look at who applies for those grants and how we can make sure that we have a broad range of providers applying for those grants, because I think that isn't always happening. And so I think that's one of the things we need to look at. I am very concerned that we spend money and give grant funds when people decide not to provide those services. I do know that there are providers from our community who do apply for those grants, are providers who are working maybe in a neighboring regional center, which I consider sort of within our community. But I appreciate hearing that, and it is one of those things I have heard in a couple of conversations recently, and I do think it's something we can look at addressing, because you are bringing up an important point, and I think we also probably, if there is not a local provider applying for stuff, we need to ask, or whether there's ways to support that occurring. So I appreciate hearing that, and I don't have all the answers at all, but I'd like to hear what people think might be helpful in that as well, to do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I think one of the other issues is that none of us really understand our rates and funding. Some of us are at $16, some of us are at $20, but a lot of, there again, big white agencies, they're at $50, $60, $70. And one of the things is a consumer, I'm wondering why the money does not follow the consumer. So a consumer can be over at an agency, that agency is probably getting $50, $60 an hour for that consumer. The consumer leaves that agency for whatever reason, come to my agency, and now I'm doing the same thing with the same person with the same issues for half of that. And we don't understand why that is. I think one of the reforms that needs to happen is the way a lot of us do some of the same things, but there's 95 different rates and the person hasn't changed. If you're an axe murderer, you're an axe murderer. So if somebody's serving an axe murderer for $50 and then you ask me to take that axe murderer for $10, it doesn't make sense. And how come the money doesn't follow the consumer?
Yeah, because the money is tied to how the service provider's rate was set up. I think the one way that we're kind of looking forward to in the next year or so is with self-determination. If people chose that model, then the dollars for the services that the individual got last year would be used to develop a budget and self-determination. I think the rate issue is too complex for me to address in a short time, but we're facing all the, and I'm happy to maybe put together, maybe one of our PVAC conversations should be around the rate issues and what we want to do to advocate for a more equitable rate system. Providers who were vendored before 2008 are sort of stuck in one rate system, and then we have median rates which apply to other providers and different service codes that we have no authority to change, and new providers' rates have to be our median rate, which only can go down, or the lower of our rate or the state rate. And so if there is a state rate for certain services out there that is a median rate that's lower than ours, we have to give that provider the lower rate. So there are a lot of complications with that. And I think that the other problem in our area, and I think this is for all providers, is that we are not compensated for providing services in a very, very high cost area. And the requirements for paying wages to get staff in this area. And that's another problem, and we'll see where we go with the rate study once we're over this pandemic and the recession. But that's not a good thing either. But I think that the rate study may solve some things, but we do need to have a conversation so we're all on the same page about how rates are set. I believe that at this regional center, we follow the rules that were set by DDS to do that. So yeah, but maybe we need to share that more broadly so people understand that. And also talk about, the one thing we are able to do when someone's situation is complex is to submit health and safety requests to the Department of Developmental Services for an individual client. Yeah.
But with our supported for example, supported living rates, it doesn't go through DDS. I mean, it's set by regional center.
It's set by regional center though. And so I'm going to put this down as one thing that I think we probably, and I'm looking at Geneva and Sister, we should have as an agenda item, because sometimes I think if we've had our rate set, then we don't understand how it's happening for new providers. But we're following rules that DDS set and the state legislature set in 2008 and have been increased a little bit, but we have no ability to provide a rate other than what was set in the median rate and so forth. So yeah, we can talk more about that, but it's not us. We believe that we're in a high cost region and we should be able to more broadly set rates, but we can't.
But, okay, but well, then how are some of the white agencies getting higher rates than the minority agencies? Who's that?
I don't know which services you're talking about, but
SLS.
Okay, so
SLS comes to mind.
For example, there are median rates for SLS, which I think we share. And if you look at any contract that our board has approved over the last 2 years, those rates are in there as well, because they are the only rates we can offer to a new provider unless that provider is supporting someone who has moved out of a developmental center or locked facility. For those consumers, there is the possibility of a higher rate. But I won't go into all of that now, because this is really, I want to listen, but I'm open to having a real conversation about all of those rates in a way we can prepare and have real clear materials, Wendell. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that come to mind, some of the, again, larger white agencies that get referrals and stuff, they go out of business. I think it was Compass that went out of business. 1 or 2 Black providers for supported living might have got a phone call, but the consumers were just sent somewhere else, just automatically. They were just sent. I know one provider got a call about 1 or 2. I got a call about maybe 1. When I said, does the money follow the consumer? I was dropped from the equation. So was the other provider. And a lot of Black providers didn't get called at all. So we're always wondering why, they just, regional center, somebody at regional center is just automatically moving people, but yet you're not checking with the people that you already have. And some of the statistics are wrong also, because it lists a lot of minority agencies. Like it said that I was full in SLS, and my capacity is 25, and I probably serve under 10. So, and we saw I was looking at whoever puts out the data, I was looking at it about a month ago, and it's not accurate. It's saying people have a capacity and they're full when they're really not. So somebody is making an error. I also want to point out also that there is also, in the systemic racism at Regional Center, I think I might have hit on this before, because there have been and there are Black employees at Regional Center that practice racism amongst Black agencies. That's what we mean by systemic. And a lot of times people think you're Black, you can't discriminate against Black, or if you're white, you can't discriminate against white, and yes, you can. You can't do same race discrimination. And a lot of times, I don't know if Black people are going along to get along or to get a promotion or whatever they're doing, but I want to let you know that there are Black employees at Regional Center of the East Bay currently that do discriminate against Black providers, and also don't even refer to Black providers. And there's a lot of units there that there's a lot of case managers there that the only way I've ever worked with them, and not just me, other providers as well, the only way we have ever worked with some of the case managers is because that case manager inherited the case. But the case manager never called or give us a referral. So we talked about this also last meeting. There needs to be some cohesive way on how you guys do equitable distribution, look at, or whatever for residential homes, day programs, SLS, because it doesn't make sense the way referrals are handed out. Now, a long time ago, Ron Kay made a statement and said, well, you know, people refer to who they're comfortable with. Now, let me tell you the issue with that statement. If you are white working at the Regional Center East Bay, you don't know any black people, don't care to know any black people, don't have any friends that are black, then you never gonna refer to black people. And see, the expectation is all, see, black people go into the white world, because we don't have no choice because it's white people run the world. But there seems to be an issue with black people coming into our world. And so statements like people work with who they're comfortable with. So if I'm not comfortable with, working with lesbians, I guess then I would never take a referral from a lesbian because I'm not comfortable. Or if I'm not comfortable working with heavyset people because I'm skinny, then I guess I will never. So making a statement with people work with who they're comfortable with taxpayer dollars, because some people you are comfortable with are paying taxes too. It's not an excuse on how equitable division of referrals should be done. So I would like if you guys could look at how you do that. Because there have been situations where there have been black case managers that knew of my work or knew we take difficult consumers and all of that. And so they may refer, and they have a caseload and everybody's just about as forensic on the caseload of that case manager. They may make 4 referrals to me. One time, someone made 4 referrals to me, not in one day, but they just had all these forensic cases. But anyway, it started going around the regional center that case manager must be getting a kickback because they've referred 4 people. But when a white case manager refers to a white agency, nobody is saying anything about that. And you have a lot of case managers. I remember back in the day, she's now gone, retired, whatever, but Sandy Pemberton, she only referred to Cherryland or Cherry Way, whatever it was called. But that's where she sent all her clients. Nobody made a sting, nobody buzzed, but a black case manager gave me 4 because she thought I could really handle, and then everybody got suspicious, and even her supervisor called her on. Why are you sending all those? And then the rumor that case manager must have been getting a kickback. So we also have that going on. I also want to say to
I'm sorry, I have a person who has an issue to raise in the chat box here. Do you, if I call on this person?
No, go ahead.
Okay, is Alu Iskandari? Are you there? Alu Iskandari, you can unmute yourself.
So I am a co-owner on a home with my wife that we have had for the past 3 years. Now, it did cost us quite a lot of money to set this home up. And one of the reasons why we set it up was because we have a 22-year-old son that's autistic, nonverbal. And so we are thinking, well, if we can deal with our own son, we might as well see how best we can help other people deal with their own. But for the past 2.5 years, we have only been partially full. 3 clients. My wife basically runs the business. I'm a trial lawyer. I do something else totally different. But it seems as if that each time we get a referral, it's a referral for a client that is out of the category that we are licensed to work with. So for example, we are managing level 3s, and we'll get clients, as many clients for level 4s, which is not what we are licensed for. So it sort of bothers me because, yes, I understand that at the beginning of this whole thing, we were told that getting your license does not necessarily mean that you are going to have a full house. But then our investigation has shown that there are people that are being given some sort of a priority, some sort of a preference with regards to assigning clients that are license appropriate with those people. These things concern me because when you have invested your personal funds in setting up something like this, then all of a sudden now you're being given clients that are outside of your category of licensing. It appears to be something that is deliberate because it's not like people um, at uh, um, RCEB don't know just by looking up the name of your business, know that, okay, this business is licensed to take level 3s. And so if they know that, then why do they continuously assign level 4s and higher to you, knowing that you can only take a level 3? And in some situations, we have observed a certain level of deception from RCEB. It's like they call you up. Now, if we had not had people working with us that would do a good assessment and say, no, this is not a category you can take, we would have been stuck with category 4 patients just because we want to fill our house up. Now, with the category 4 patients and patients that have a proclivity for violence or something like that, we have other people's children that are in our home that don't speak, don't talk, don't interact. They need all our help. And we have a duty to protect them, those people too. So it appears to us that RCEB is not cognizant of the duty of each owner of each business to protect those who are more or less more likely to get harmed by others. Because when you send a level 4 person to our office, to our home, basically what you're doing is you're saying, if we accept this person, then we are going to have to manage the dynamics of having someone with a propensity for violence living in a home where we have people that are meek, calm, and need more protection than others. These are issues that are bothering me. These are issues that are bothering me as a vendor and my wife as a co-vendor. I'm sure these are issues that bother other people too. If there is a population out there, there has to be some sort of an equitable way in which you can disperse clients. Now, if someone out there says they got 4 clients in one day, I don't envy them. But if you got 4 clients in one day, how many do other people get? That's an issue. There has to be some degree of equitable way in which you can give clients out. You know, that's my point.
Thank you, Mr. Iskandari, for giving your perspective. We also had Marvin Tate who would like to speak. Marvin, are you there?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you.
So I want to say hello to everyone. My name is Marvin Tate. I'm one of the co-managers of Amplify Care Center. Wanted to say first off, I hope people aren't hearing this as an opportunity to complain. I hope this is an opportunity to understand and to be more sensitive to how people are feeling, some of the Black vendors are feeling, and to find out like what are some solutions that we can, and we're only going to get there if we're transparent. And I want to be real cognizant of privacy too. I feel I want to give some specific examples, but I don't want to breach anybody's privacy or make anybody feel uncomfortable at the same time. So for our home has been open for about 6 years now. We were given a client that was not appropriate for the home. The case manager told me that if we complained or didn't try to service this individual, that we weren't going to get any more referrals for a year. And that in fact happened. So since I was new and I was green for the first 3 years, I didn't complain. We did our best to serve this individual for 3 years. And we learned a lot from him. I think it ultimately made our home a better home, but it was a disservice to him because he needed a higher level of care. So, but I think some of the common theme here is when you complain, what is the structure? What is the protocol? Because what I'm saying now is not anything that I haven't put in writing to the regional center already, and I haven't received any response. And it's been over a year. We've been in existence for about 6 years. I didn't complain. I've been doing nothing but complaining for the last 3 years. So I have plenty of complaints out there, but there doesn't seem to be a structure where if you have a complaint, I've called one case manager, supervisor, left over 20 calls, sent emails, and never received a response. And I even called the department. So the department says that, obviously case managers and supervisors should return calls, but that's an employment issue between the case manager and the management at the regional center. So where does that leave us? If as a provider, if I complain and my complaint is not responded to in a substantive way and any substantive changes, then you feel kind of abandoned. And then it seems like that, we're all on the same page in the sense that we're all here to help the consumers. We're all here to hear the individuals who society has pretty left on the wayside. So the regional centers were implemented to help these people, but the providers who are actually doing the day-to-day care are not treated fairly or not given the resources to provide a better quality of life to the individuals that we serve. So it seems it's a very confusing process. And I'm a rule follower. Like whatever the rules are, I'll follow. But I really feel like there's a set of rules that exist that I'm not exposed to. So if we could make a real clear effort to say, if you have a grievance or if you have a difference of opinion with a case manager, this is the rule you follow and this is what the expectations are. And I know that there are explicit and written rules in place, but when you use those rules, there's no follow-up, there's no feedback, and literally, at least specifically in my case, nothing has been done. And just to give some specific examples, we're finally full. We've been full in like the last 6 years. We've been full probably for the last year, which has been great. Well, the first 5 years, we were never full. We have 3 African-American consumers. We have 1 white consumer. The case manager did her best to move the white consumer, because our facility is in Richmond. She did her best to move that consumer to Concord area because she thought he would be more comfortable. And I'm like, that is so crazy, because he's here, he likes us, we like him. He gets along well. We all have good relationships, and everybody is settled in. So like, what makes you think that because he lives in the Richmond area, he would be better off being in the Concord area? It just doesn't make sense. I wanted to make a mention about QA, and I know that Mike is here, and I've had great communication with Mike, so I'm not, throwing anybody on the bus specifically. But I've had another conversation with another employee of the QA who, when we were discussing this issue, like openly defended a case manager with giving legal advice that was blatantly wrong. It was about an issue, and I don't want to go into the issue, but I don't think a QA representative should be giving legal advice. And I don't think that QA's purpose is to defend the case managers. I think that we're all trying, I'm definitely not perfect. I'm definitely not the best direct care or manager person. But what I rely on and what I expect sometimes is like, a healthy relationship with QA, a healthy relationship with the case manager, so then I can be transparent about what happened or whatever, and I can get good feedbacks because it's going to make me a better provider. And that doesn't happen. And I want to echo another sentiment. And the reality is that if a case manager doesn't like you, if a case manager is not comfortable with you, that case manager is going to make your life hell. And that's the reality. And it's not just the way I feel. And I'm trying to keep my comments limited to things that I have already put in writing to the regional center and have not received a response from, and it's been over a year. So I'm hoping that my comments are received as an opportunity to reflect and make things better. I know that like with doctors, if you're a doctor at Kaiser, there's a board independent of the doctors that you can complain to that will review their license or whatever. There needs to be some type of third party, unbiased, separate entity or board or committee that you can bring a complaint to, or you can bring, something that's not going right, and to that board, because it doesn't seem to be any teeth in bringing complaints to the regional center and the structure that it's in right now. So in the sake of time, I feel like I've taken up a lot of time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marvin. I appreciate your comments. I have a couple more people who have raised their hand to speak. Marcy Hodge, are you there?
Yes, I just wanted to just make a point for the gentleman before, I believe it was Michael who just spoke. We are a 4I program, and we have not received referrals in 2 years. And we have been told that that regional center really doesn't do much placement of 4I clients. And so that's the reason why we haven't received any referrals in the last 2 years. So I just, to that point, they're referring very high level 4I or 4 clients to lower rate homes, and that's substantiated by my experience.
Okay. Thank you, Marcy. I also have a J. Douglas Holly. Mr. Holly?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Well, Marvin had said it all. It has to stop. It has to even the playing field for everyone. And I feel personally that the case manager is not equipped to deal with the type of population, the type of individuals, especially coming out of the county jails and prisons. That's regional center clients, and I guarantee you, probably half of the homeless population in Oakland are probably regional center clients, but just never been addressed. And you have the vendors out there to really want to work with the population, but it's like, who knows who if you don't know that person. If that person doesn't know you, they won't get in. But Marvin said it all, and I'm not going to go into detail. I'm not going to incriminate myself of things that have occurred. going there. But I will say this. I've been a SSL member about 9 years and finally got one consumer last year. And when I got that one consumer, came out of Martinez County Jail. And then I ended up having to get a placement for him in Stockton. But in the midst of all that, never got a referral from a referral package on him. So I had to dig and find out history on the individual that he was in Porterville twice. He's been in CPT twice. Just his whole background, and it came from the family. Now, when we did this, has one to do the assessment on the individual, she realized that another vendor turned him down, but yet they had the whole package. But when the caseworker referred the individual to me, just gave me a face sheet but never gave me the whole package because he had to get out of Martinez County Jail. So things like that, it's like, you throw something at us, we don't have no idea who the individual is, so we have to do research. Then you expect for us to make wine out of, make grapes out of wine. But we just had to come together. Bottom line, come together and even the playing field. We're all in this for a reason. It's ministry at the end of the day, helping these individuals. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Holly. I see a few comments here in the chat. One from Adaptive Learning, where they request, they would like to hear more about concerns about how systemic racism or perpetuating racism is reflected in the regional center as an institution, and what we can do as a system to actively combat this. So, does anyone have any particular suggestions, especially in regards to Mr. Tate's, Mr. Holly's, Ms. Hodges, and Mr. Eskandari's comments?
Yes. Suggestions on how to combat racism?
Mm-hmm.
Stop it. I mean, we act like it's like a cure for cancer or something like that. Racism is a behavior, and it's a learned behavior. And it's funny when we're pulled over by cops, we display one behavior. When we at home, we display another behavior. When we in church, we display another behavior. So it's not like we need to come up with this elaborate plan on how Black consumers and Black service providers should be treated equal as their white counterparts when it comes to referrals and funding and pulling clients out of our homes or our day programs or our supported living agencies without no notice. Treat us the way you would treat Harmony House, the way you would treat Sister Mary Grace's place. Treat us the way you used to treat Rosalie. If Rosalie Schubert said change the flavor of Coke, y'all change the flavor of Coke. So we want to be treated like you treat everybody else. And let me say to all the Black folks on here within the sound of my voice, don't be scared to speak. I don't care if you got, because this is something else that happens with Black folks. If we start complaining, what white folks tend to do is pull up our past. Well, you see this in the news too. Shoot Black people in the back, kill them and all that, then they pull up the past. Well, he was a drug dealer. But, a white guy can walk right past the police with a semi-automatic rifle, they hand him a glass of water. So it's the same thing that happens in the field of developmental disabilities. When we complain, then our past is brought up before us. When white people complain, something is done about it. I don't want Black people to get intimidated. I don't care if you got sanctions. I don't care if you got write-ups. I don't care if you got bad marks from licensing. It still does not give the regional center the authority to discriminate against you. White people all day long make mistakes and they take the regional center money, they run out of the business once they get the money, they change, when they say they can't make it, they change the name, they give it to their uncle, they keep going, and they keep going, and they keep going. So let me give you an example. Alice Sword and I, she's from Alternative Learning Center. We asked for a meeting years ago. This is way before Lisa Kleinberg. We asked for a meeting 15 years ago to talk about discrimination. 15 years ago. We met with Jim Burton and Francine Davis. When we walked into the meeting that we asked for to talk about discrimination, what white people do? Jim Burton had my file and Alice Sword's file sitting on the table, and he said, as a defense mechanism about racism, he said, what about this? What about this? And he's talking about an audit DDS did, which is a bunch of BS too, but that's a whole nother story. But he talked about that. So you see Black folks and white folks and Lisa Kleinberg, we don't tend for this to be a retaliation session. Because you know, if anybody that knows me, and a lot of people on there know me, when I got back to my office, I sent an email to Jim Burton about his tactics and behavior trying to intimidate. I don't care, I'm not, do write-ups and audits and whatever, even though they malarkey, they're still the cost of doing business. And if white people are allowed to make mistakes and keep moving, I'm not apologizing for mine. I'm gonna try to do better. I'm probably gonna make some when I get off this call today, but I'm not gonna let it intimidate me. And I want Black providers, don't let it intimidate you. If you still doing business with Regional Center of the East Bay, you pay taxes, and some of us pay more taxes than they do, don't let it be an intimidating factor. And I just want to say that to everybody.
Well, Wendell, I'm glad that you said that, because I do have a couple more folks who want to speak here that just sent me some chats. So I see Marcy has her hand up again. Ms. Hodge?
Yes, I would say that we definitely, a regional center has to put in place a real robust collection of data. And data, once you're able to see what the numbers are, who's being referred, what agencies, all of that information that we need to be able to identify, is there fairness across the board, has to be implemented. And of course, there has to be a feedback loop so that when we are complaining, you know, there's a process that's happening, and we know that something's in place so that people are hearing much of what consumers and vendors have concerns around.
Can I ask Marcy what data you think would be important for us to collect? Are you thinking about
well, for placements,
the race of providers, and then the number of referrals, or that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely, everything. I should be able to, you know, receive a file and be able to run the numbers, you know, get an aggregate of, or a medium of, what's the placement rate for 4I programs or four programs? What's the placement rate? You know, if I looked at a 6-month timeline, I should be able to pull that information and see how many consumers are coming into placement. Also, I think we spoke about this before, is that there's a hidden collection of data where if there are no denials, then that's something that's not being collected. So it's, you know, that's something else. How many consumers are being denied services? How many consumers are being offered services? I spoke with someone who called me the other day, a family, and they said they have not heard of respite or, you know, a lot of the other services that they should be provided with. So it just needs to be a robust amount of data. If I asked the state about their data, they could, you know, actually give me what I needed, and I could actually go through a timeline or year to year or time frame, you know, 5-year time frame, and look at what's the rate of referrals for African Americans, Caucasians, how many large agencies are coming in from the state, what are the numbers for that? So there's just a timeline and information that we need, so that it helps to mitigate a lot of these challenges that were happening, because behaviors aren't going to just all of a sudden change. They change because people have accountability, and data will help with that.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you, Marcy. I also have Zachary, is it, that has their hand raised? Zachary, are you there? It says Zachary's iPhone. Okay, I'll move on to the next person and I'll come back to you, Zachary. Marvin would like to speak again, and then we have Wandra Boyd. Marvin?
It looks like Alice is raising her hand as well.
Oh.
Yeah, so just to put on the list.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll catch you in just a second, Ms. Alice, okay?
Yeah, Lisa, to your point about what data would be included, and I know that's a sensitive issue just in terms of, but like if there could be some type of list that, you know, left name, gender, race. I mean, if you took all of those factors out and just said that within a certain city, or if, I'm not sure if you can do more, or a certain area, a certain amount of referrals or placements were made in a certain area per week or per month. So if we had that for the Richmond area, for the Concord area, for the Pittsburgh area, and so forth and so on, if we could just see placements and of individuals in homes and leave out the sensitive information, that might be illuminating to see, at least from a management standpoint. Well, wow, you know, we've had 20 placements in the Concord area. There's been 0 placements in the Richmond area, and then you could back, you know, reverse engineer the questions from there. And another thing, I think that, I don't know, I know it's possible, like on the board level, to create a position on the board that would be specifically for a diversity committee.
They have one.
Board positions that look at policies and procedures and standard operating procedures, but a committee or a board that would have direct input at the board level, that would be really helpful, because the mission and the goal of that committee would be to gather this information, and then maybe they could have access to a little bit more sensitive information, and it could be looked at and discussed at the board level. And then that way it could tie in the executive director and the management, and questions could be answered and addressed at that level. As it's working now, there's complaints that are made, and it goes, I don't know where it goes at this point. And I think the question was, I guess, understanding, you know, the racism more. I think that's a hard question. I think that, in the George Floyd situation, I think the whole nation appreciated when, I think it was Chief Madeira, when he came out and said to the nation, what happened to George Floyd was wrong, and I'm not gonna cover it up. That was powerful. I think that it would be also powerful here if management would just say, hey, I recognize that there are some inequalities that not just today or yesterday, but like a 10, 20-year period, and I'm sure maybe even farther than that. Just some type of recognition. Hey, there are some inequalities here. I recognize that. I may not know how to solve it, but recognition of the problem would mean a lot.
Thank you, Marvin. I like your ideas, actually. I'm writing them down. I have Mrs. Wandra Boyd, and then I have Ms. Alice here.
Hello, everyone. I'm a guest, so I'll try to be very brief. I'm a member of the Developmental Disabilities Council for the past 20 years. Hello, Wendell. It's nice to see you again. In a lot of ways, I'm very sad to hear this conversation, a conversation Wendell and I and other members of the council, I think it was about 20 years ago, recognized. And it seems like we're talking about the same thing. In fact, we had a resolution that was passed by the Board of Supervisors that we worked on as a diversity committee of the Developmental Disabilities Council to address the way that consumers were feeling about the services that they were receiving. Specifically, I think when it was suggested that we should keep records, I think the records need to be very specific. I don't think we need to sugarcoat. If you want to find out the data on African Americans, it has to be reported that way so that it can be addressed. Sometimes it appears as if something's happening and it could be racist. Sometimes we don't know all the things that are being involved, but to first address it and address it quickly, we need to have the data. We need to know who is doing what, who is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I think the data will help us move forward and get solutions. And I'm shouldn't put myself in it, but it is very disheartening for me to hear something that I thought we addressed actually with the resolution with the Board of Supervisors about making sure that clients felt comfortable with their case managers, and to make sure that the various minority communities that we were serving were. I'm not a provider. I am the mother of a consumer, but I thought we had tackled this, and this is about the second time I brought it up again in another venue. We need to get it right so that someone visiting you 20 years from now won't hear the same thing that they thought they had at least helped eradicate a little bit 20 years ago. And as I said, Wendell was on that subcommittee, and it seems as if very little has changed. But the way to address it is to keep the data very specific. You don't need the name of the person, but it's important if we're addressing what is perceived as African Americans, vendors not getting the same number of clients that another a white vendor may get. We have to be very specific about that in order to address it. So I'm going to be quiet now. I'll talk to Geneva a little more offline because this is so personal, and I can feel myself getting very frustrated. And as Wendell knows, and as Lisa knows, I can get very emotional about this, but I'll talk offline. But we need to remedy this in a way very specific, and so that we can see, we can pull up, and we can know what's going on, because otherwise it'll be hard to address it. It'll be hard to say that they assume there may be some racism going on or some discrimination going on, but we don't have the actual data to prove it. And so it just would be really good if we would get the data, that you would get the data. I'll try to be a silent community person coming to your meetings, but this has been discussed before. It's just very disheartening to hear something that was discussed prior to this in another venue, but still with the developmental disabilities community. It's still, which means that I would have to look at the fact, and I've talked to other African American parents about their children not being able to be served and feeling certain things happening with them. So it's important that we get the accurate data. And thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Boyd. Now, Ms. Alice, are you ready?
I am ready. And, I have spent most of this time trying to figure out how I will be able to speak. This is a new era for me. And if you look at my face and probably judge my age, you can tell why. But get to the point. Most of the people that have spoken have really said most of the things I wanted to say. I am so happy to have this opportunity, though, to sanction those people that have spoken. I have been doing this now over 40 years. I started out as a boarding care operator, and particularly I set up this home once for disabled mothers and their children. And I was a growing vendor at that time. And I remember Rosalie Schubert coming to the house to do some evaluations. Beg pardon?
Nothing.
Hello? Am I still on?
Ms. Alice, go ahead.
As I was saying, and I was asking her how I could get into this other venues that Region Center offered, and I asked her about supportive living because we did have those parents that were coming, those mothers that were coming out of their home that would eventually, because it was on a 3-year program, and they had to go into another setting. So I was asking Rosalie, how do I get to that point? And I can remember distinctively, and will say it with her. She said, "Oh, that group is for a special. That service is only available to a specialized number of vendors." And that's stop that right now. Now, and I never was told what that specialized group was about, but I know one thing: I was excluded. But eventually, I did get in, and check your data. I checked mine too, but I think it was the first SLS Black vendor that came to Regional Center. And but what hardens my heart most of all about that was 40-some years ago. I have never, ever, never received a direct SLS referral unless it was connected to some ILS client that I have had. I'm talking about a year span of 30 to 40 years. So something is wrong with that. Something is wrong. And yes, Women and I, 15 years ago, maybe halfway, 20 years ago, within that time period, we did meet with Jim Burton and say, well, how do you go about determining who is and who isn't? And Wendell is quite right. We were met with, well, you know what? You got the things you need to clean up. Well, yeah, I know I have some things I need to clean up, and I'm not the only vendor in the world that has things that we need to clean up. But that's not the issue here, but that's how we were met with that. But most recently, and I promise you I won't be but a minute, but most recently, last year, we held, Region Center sponsored these 2 vendor fairs. Some of you guys might remember, one in Concord and one in Oakland. And we were asked to come and talk about our services to different case managers. Well, I said, well, now this is an opportunity. I'm so glad this has happened because I hate those dog and pony shows where they used to do years and years and years ago where one had to get up and talk about their services, and I didn't like that. But this one was really good. And I was so excited because I have always been told that housing was a big issue in the Bay Area, and we all know that because housing is very expensive in the Bay Area. And we as vendors, many of us as supported living vendors, we try our best to work with how landlords to get them to work with our clients, and that's a hard job to do. But because of God's grace and whatever talents He gives us, many of us are able to do that, and we get landlords to work with us. So last year, June of last year, I had worked with a landlord that had a duplex with 8 bedrooms, 4 each. And I asked him, talk with him extensively. We have clients at the Region Center that really benefit from this housing opportunity. So when I went to the vendor fair, I presented a flyer that showed that, and matter of fact, the rent was only $430 to $50. I can't remember exactly now. It was either $430 or $450. I talked to Jacob, who I guess is one of your coordinators, and said, "Oh, what a wonderful idea! Let's explore that." And we talked about it. We talked about the conflict of interest, and to make sure that clients had rights. Their rights would not be infringed upon. We talked about all that, and I felt very good about what Jacob and I had decided, because no, I did not own an apartment. No, I had no investment in an apartment, but I got this person to do this for me. Well, we talked about it for a couple of months later, and then it just fizzled out. Didn't hear anything else from Jacob, and I kept trying to get in contact with him, never did. 6 months passed. Within that 6-month period, though, I learned that it was allowed for one vendor to go out and purchase an apartment building to house employees. And I've always been told that You cannot be the landlord and the service provider anyway. I don't know how that happened, and there might be a procedure that you can go through to make that happen, but I know one thing, most of us do not know about that procedure. So I was a little hawking the back because of that. And then during the same time period, there was another SLS agency that closed down, and I understand all the clients went to one particular vendor who did not necessarily have housing. Housing was an issue for these clients. I never received a call and say, Alice, do you still have those apartments available? Or do you have room to service these clients? And as William said before, the data that you guys probably have about the capacity and what we serve is totally wrong. I'm just 35 people, and I probably have 10. Never had more than that. So my concern is, how do you make those decisions? And Lisa, you have an email from me, just came to you probably Tuesday, describing the same issue, because I'm concerned about how decisions are made. And most of the guys that have spoken to that fact that there seems to be a need to evaluate how do you determine which agency serves clients. I know there's choice. We all know that the clients get the first choice. But from all I can witness, have seen, observed, and have heard about, that's not the way it's done. It's done strictly through who I like and who the case manager like, and popularity of the vendor at that time. And that's the way it's done. And particularly, I want to speak to you about that popularity thing, because what I have noticed over the years, that you guys would tend to choose a flavor of the month or a flavor of the year, and everybody, black or white, everybody get that referral. Well, not based on service, not based on reputation, not based on anything other than, I guess, spreading the word of mouth that send everybody to this person. Who goes out and see what kind of services? Who is checking to see is it based on service or based on popularity? And I have a problem with that, because I think, as all of you have said, it shouldn't be based on who I like or who you don't like, or what color dress you have. I don't like the way your hair is done. It should be based on service, quality of service. It should be based on clients' rights, but it should not be based on these personal ideas and comments and gossip sessions that seems to go on at Regional Center. And that's my story, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Alice. I have someone by the name of Megan Hodap. Megan Hodap, are you there? And then after that, I have Ms. Maria.
Hi, yeah, I'm Megan. I don't want to take up too much time. I don't think now is the time to center white voices, but I did just want to make an important point off of what Marvin was saying about the board that could address issues like these. So as a lot of people are pointing out in the chat, there's already a diversity and inclusion board, and for whatever reason, whatever their focus might be, the issues that are being discussed in this meeting are not being addressed or changed by that board, right? So there still needs to be a solution. And I think data is an important part of that. Compiling the data, I think having an effective and safe and non-retaliatory grievance procedure is part of that. There's all these parts of that, but no significant change is going to take place until the decision makers and people throughout the Regional Center of the East Bay are embracing that the issue is systemic. And I don't think there's a way to do that without bringing in accountability partners that can hold everyone accountable. So if there's a board that's appointed and with black and brown faces on it, that's a step in the right direction. But unless we have an anti-racist organization, a racial justice organization that's coming in and working as partners with the Regional Center of the East Bay, it's still going to be an insular environment that isn't able to make serious, significant change. So I would just really encourage the Regional Center of the East Bay to bring in outside partners that specifically do racial justice work. And that way they can come in and they can give you the tools you need to provide training to your employees. They can provide an outside voice on unconscious biases, because I don't think anyone is at the Regional Center is going, I'm racist and I don't like black people. I think because racism is so pervasive. Because white supremacy is everywhere, we don't see how we're perpetuating it. And there are Black and brown people that perpetuate it as well. So hiring a Black person isn't enough. Serving a Black consumer isn't enough. Bringing in someone that can hold us accountable is the way to really make this from the top down and make it happen. I just wanted to say that.
Great, thank you, Megan. Okay, and I have Maria Ramirez. Ms. Maria, are you there?
Maria.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, great. You know, I've been with Regional Center through my daughter. My daughter's 45, and almost from the beginning, they wanted to, like, doctors told me to institutionalize her. She's an Afro-Latina, high-functioning woman with Down syndrome, and it has been a systemic battle her whole life to get her what she deserves, and the systemic part is the one that is why I'm still here and supporting and listening to the Black vendors. I mean, that really touches my heart, because it's 40 years that I've seen it just with my daughter. And so I want to know from the head of Regional Center, I mean, this is not a question or an attitude. Do you see systemic racism? It is a reality, and it needs to be taken from the top and dealt with, so that you just don't hear, oh, you know, the Blacks, the Browns, we're complaining. No, this is it's been like a way of life, and that's why I think these calls for justice are so important. I'm also hearing, you know, how many times do we have to call and try and communicate and not get response, not get answers. And yet I'm hearing, I want to ask this question, are Regional Center case managers trained to mail 3 letters, and if the client does not respond, they can close the case and the client will no longer receive services? I mean, look at the disparity there in communication. Is this true? Because you can cut services for developmental clients because they don't respond 3 times? I mean, this is long overdue. To Regional Center, you need to do some serious work, because, you know, when is, if not now, when? You know, we get written off, just so-called normal Black and brown people get written off, you know, low expectations. And I see it the same with developmental kids of color. So it's not a question of if there is systemic racism. It is there. Let's dismantle it.
Amen, Maria. You're right. It's there. And we're not trying to make white folks comfortable. We're trying to educate you.
Oh, really?
Right. So I have Denise Bradley, who would also like to speak. After Denise, I have Lisa, and then I think I have Zachary back. Okay.
Hello. I wanted to talk a minute about Black clients in terms of, you know, things that I've seen over the years that go on in IPP meetings. I think that there needs to be some sort of system where people are documenting the services that they want prior to going into a meeting, which could be compared to what they actually get or what ends up in their IPP after the meeting. And that was, I'm cribbing that from, I think, Leatrice, that came up in a meeting that we had the other day, because I have been in meetings where I have seen participants ask for a service, and then because they have no parental involvement, the case manager talks them out of the service before the end of the meeting. And you know, I have tried to follow up with some of the folks that are in my program to let them know that they have, you know, the opportunity to, you know, appeal that or talk to the client's rights advocate. And a lot of times they were saying, well, if my case manager doesn't think I'm ready for that, then I'm not going to pursue it. And I think we all know that the regs say that if people ask for supported living services, they should be able to get them, and that there's not a behavioral line that they have to meet before they have those services. And those kinds of issues don't ever result in people getting a denial letter because the person has been talked out of it during the meeting. And so we're talking about statistics. We need to think of some ways in which we can gather data on things that are actually happening that we see. Because I can tell you that I've been in a lot of meetings where I felt very bad about myself that I didn't speak up in the meeting, but you also don't want to be in a meeting going back and forth with a case manager in front of your participant either. So you're put in a very difficult position. And sometimes I've had the experience of talking to people after the meeting, and then all of a sudden I'm, you know, now getting referred to QA because of some issue that this case manager has drummed up. And I can talk a lot about that, and I'm sure other providers can talk about their experiences in that. But I think that we need to have some kind of way of documenting what people want before they go into the meeting, so that we have some way of determining what happened after the meeting. The other issue I think that's a huge issue and probably needs its own meeting is the whole residential vendorization and referral process, because as a provider and also as a consultant to many people who are opening up programs and running programs, I see a lot of chaos in terms of the whole referral process to residential programs. I've had residential consulting clients who have level 3s who are getting level 3 adult residential facilities who are getting 70-year-olds coming to their house for a tour to see if they're appropriate. And to me, this is not a respectful way to treat the participants. One of my clients had such a case and had to tell the gentleman that she wasn't able to accept him because she's in adult residential facility, which tops off at 59. So I made a phone call to Regional Center, you know, saying that, why is this happening? Because this person who thought he might be able to have a chance to live in this really nice house was rejected and felt bad. And that didn't have to happen if the people doing the referrals were cognizant of who they were referring people to. And this has happened a few times. This was not just an isolated experience. We also have lots of situations where people who have level 3s have all of these level 4I people in their homes. Level 3 facilities are not required to have consulting hours, so they struggle with the folks in their house. They're generally offered a one-to-one, but they don't have the support that they need to serve these folks. And then if something happens, a lot of times, you know, they have issues because, you know, they can't handle the participants. And while that's going on, I hear from people that have level 4I facilities that are looking for people for their facilities, but apparently there are none. And I think that also brings in the fact that Regional Center has been putting people in unlicensed facilities, sometimes with services, sometimes without services, and how that can happen when there are people that have openings in their facilities. I just think that the whole system of the residential referrals need to be looked at. There needs to be some way of gathering data about who's being placed where and why, and how decisions are made to send people to programs that are not appropriate for them. That's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, so let's go to Lisa Kleinbaum. And then after that, we'll have Zachary.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for sharing their experiences today and really being humbled to be able to listen to your experiences and to think about how we need to move forward. I think one of the things I heard a lot about is referrals and how referrals are done. And I mean, in my mind, I'd like to sit with a small group of people to really talk about those details and think about how we could do that better in a way that works for the people we serve and make sure that they're getting referred appropriately, and take a look at that. And I'm also going to do some looking into what data we can share and how we can work to look at some of these questions that people have, because some of that data is not at my fingertips right now in terms of our systems. But I also want you to know that recently, in the wake of really the Black Lives Matter movement and the issues with Mr. Floyd's death, our regional center staff and management are going to be part of a working group focused on anti-racism and looking at issues inside the regional center. And I think we are going to bring in an outside facilitator. So I really appreciate those thoughts. I know the history of racism in the United States, and I know that this is something that we have to address, and I think the time is really now. This is a time that this issue is really front and center. It's not that it hasn't been front and center for years. And I acknowledge that, and I want to hear from people. And I think we do need to also, another thing I'm listening to is a more transparent process for people to bring concerns that can be addressed. There is a whistleblower process for vendors, and I will say that I don't see a lot of things coming through that process. So I think there is a way we need to make that clearer so people can bring those concerns. And I also think we do need to look at our processes and internally and take a look. So that I just want you to know that you have my commitment, that I am really looking at these things and want to make change in ways that will afford the people we serve and the people who serve the people that we're responsible for serving. We are a changing system, and I talk a lot about self-determination right now because I think that's going to bring a lot of changes as well. And I really want all providers to be aware of that, because that may be a big part of us moving forward, where it is really in the consumer's hands as to what services they're choosing and in different ways. So that's all I have to say, because I'm really humbled to listen to all of you today. So thanks, Geneva.
Geneva, I want to ask Lisa a question. Lisa, you were saying you are aware of racism and stuff in the world. Are you and your management, you, Steve Robinson, Ronke, are you guys specifically are aware of the racism as it pertains to Black vendors and consumers within the regional center of the East Bay? Not the world, not the country, not George Floyd, but regional center of the East Bay. Are you aware? Because you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. So I'm wondering, are you aware of that?
You know, I'm going to say that I believe that there is a variety of levels on which people's experiences are, that there is bias and there are things that have occurred that are not outside of that framework. How could there not be racism within our regional center in terms of, you know, because we're human beings in this society. I also want to look more closely at what we are doing, and we don't track things by people's ethnicity or race in terms of service providers. So I do think getting some more data, which I'm committed to looking at, we can do. All that's to say is that I am a person who believes that we have to be looking at these issues and we have to be anti-racist. And personally, that is something I am looking at, and I don't want to minimize that. There's certain, that's something we're gonna address. And I will be bringing these concerns to our Diversity and Equity Committee, as well as sharing these concerns that came up at PVAC and I think are part of the broader community with the Board of Directors as well. I think they want to know, and we need to address those concerns. Yeah.
Do we think, I would think if the Board of Directors, they haven't heard, they're not aware of racism, they didn't find it interesting enough to be here, send somebody.
So you have Sister Mary Grace and Geneva are both the representatives of PVAC to the board. And so they are here, and this will be shared as part of the report to the Board of Directors, and that is also what happens with our Diversity and Equity Committee and going forward. And I think we've been talking about just the issues that have been raised since the murder of George Floyd to the board. So those will be addressed more as we move forward. So yeah.
I just find it interesting nobody from the board is here. Not sending Geneva, not sending Sister Mary Grace. Sister Mary Grace on this?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah.
Board president, nobody. That's just interesting. Take note, black vendors. Carry on.
Okay. Can you finish that? There ain't no. I'm concerned. I didn't hear the end of that, Wendell.
I was saying I find it interesting that, there's board members didn't find this serious enough to attend. Some other board members. They're not aware of racism, or?
I don't know, actually. Other board members only infrequently attend PVAC because almost all of our board members are also employed. So that is why there are representatives from PVAC to the board, just to explain that. So, yeah.
If a note to the board, if Geneva Sister Mary Grace can take it, if they really can, anything you sit at the head of, when it gets serious, I mean, I have a director of my agency. When it gets down to the brass nickels and tacks, and there's some issues, or somebody from Regional Center called me and there's some issues, then I step in where I normally don't. So note to board president, whatever the positions are, if they really are concerned about racism, see all the mouth and all the talk and all the this, but if you can't say I believe there's racism, and if the people that govern the regional center can't show up, then I think you're doing a political song and dance and you really don't care. Because you show up for what you care about.
Okay.
I hear that.
Thank you for that insight, Wendell. And you can rest assured, we will definitely, Sister Mary Grace and I will make sure to give a robust report, as well as I'm hoping that we can, we are actually recording this session, and we'll have chat available, the general chat, not private chats, but general chat available, so that those who couldn't attend today will be able to go back and watch it at their convenience, and then hopefully get a bit more insight in addition to our report to the board, okay?
It'd be good if they show up, not watch it on TV.
Right, absolutely.
Only if they care.
So I do have two more people who would like to speak. I have Zach back. Zach, are you there? Zachary, you can unmute yourself. I think there may be some trouble with the connection there because I don't see your microphone is lit up. So I'm trying to get you. If not, if you can put your comments, Zach, if you could put your comments in the chat box and I can say them. And after Zach, let's see. I have Leatrice Thomason who would like to speak, and then Marcy Hodge. Leah, are you there?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
So I am a vendor, but I'm in a unique position because I'm also a behavioral consultant. And my mother, I'm a behavioral consultant for level 4 facilities. And my mother, for 27 years, operated a level 4I children's home. And so for about 18 years, I was providing behavioral consultation to 9 level 4I children's homes. My mother was the only Black provider. The other 8 homes were operated by people of Filipino descent in the suburbs. And so because of my role as a consultant, I review referral packets with all of my clients. Because of confidentiality, I don't ever discuss the clients with other homes, but it was really challenging to see that, they're the same group of kids. When kids need placement, the same packets get sent to homes. And I would see the homes in Dublin, San Ramon, and Concord getting all of the same referrals. And meanwhile, I would hear my mother saying, oh, the only people I have are referrals from the Yosemite, which is the Children's Crisis House, or from Alameda County or Contra Costa County, but not from Regional Center just for regular placement. And for years and years, really, the children who had significant behavioral challenges would usually get rejected by the homes in Dublin, Concord, and San Ramon. And only after those kids had been rejected from several homes did my mom get that same referral. And she's been a vendor for a long time, has a great track record of really doing amazing work with children in terms of teaching skills. Children who were seen as very dangerous, able to live really productive lives by the time they're in their teens. They're cooking for themselves. They've learned to shower themselves. They can ride BART and go to different activities in the community. And this has been, for decades, she's proven this, but because she's Black and her home's in Oakland, she doesn't even get the referrals. And because I'm her daughter and I have ethics, I can't even tell her, hey, I can't say to the case manager, oh, well, you're referring to these homes, but guess what? There's another great vendor who has 2 open beds. So it would be great to collect data on, not just data on how many referrals Black providers get, but data on when do they get the referral? Are they number 6 on the list, or are they number 1 or 2? And how many other, most of my mom's clients in the last 10 years that she operated, the group homes closed now, she just does supported living, but almost all of her clients were children who were referred by the county, and children who had come from the Yosemite, who I'd worked with in other homes, who gotten kicked out of those homes because they never should have been placed there, but because the house was big and pretty and it was in Concord, they got placed there, And so it would be great to collect data on when the Black provider gets the referral, not just do they get it, but when they get it, and how much stuff has the client had to go through before they get to a vendor who can actually work with them. The another thing for people who, just in my personal life, I know people who are parents of children with developmental disabilities. Some of them have been staff some of our staff have children who are clients of Regional Center. And just, I've been asked just as a volunteer to be part of IEP teams just for folks who need some help and advocacy. And I have never walked into an IEP just with someone who I know on a personal basis and had a Regional Center case manager with them. Why should I, as just like a person who they happen to know through church or because their cousin works for me, you know, why should I have to be the person who's telling them about resources that the case manager should be telling them about? And these are all Black children who are underserved. So that's another thing that I really want to shine a light on, is that there are a lot of kids who are not getting the services they need because their case managers don't talk to them. And once again, like families who I know and served by who live in other places and who are not Black are getting offered respite. They're getting offered therapies, and they're getting offered advocacy. Like, even if I only see your kid once a year, I'm going to be at that IEP to make sure that your kid is getting served properly by their school district. I would love to see more of that for Black children.
Great, thank you, Leah. I think at the end of the day, that is the case, right? We're all here for the same purpose. We're approaching it in many different ways, but we're all here to make sure that our consumers and families are supported. So we have Marcy Hodge, still trying to get Zachary up. Hopefully we can get him in and out to get his audio controls back. Marcy, are you ready?
Yes, I do. I had a quick question, and then I have a statement. And I wanted to find out, how does our regional center track consumers who receive IHSS services from the county? And then my statement is just around, just hearing the stories is just so disheartening to hear this, the different stories that are just woven through that are so similar, and the experiences that people have talked about from 40 years ago, and it's still going on. And, you know, for me, I don't have a problem with fighting back and telling my story. And I'm not concerned about anyone, any repercussion or blowback from that. And so many Black vendors are, you know, it's their livelihood. And I'm the fourth generation of serving regional science center clients. But my family, you know, have had their, outside of the first generation, you started to see elements of these discrimination components on the second generation in the, you know, late 70s or so, when people started to see that, you know, people were actually making a livelihood off of this. And that's a lot of this began to rise from that, where people just felt they had control to control your livelihood. And I would just, my whole purpose is just to clean up house. We're in a great moment in time to make this kind of drastic change and to eliminate this kind of systemic racism and the inequality that so many of us have faced. And sometimes this is a great conversation to have, but sometimes it requires a really good lawsuit. And I would hope that Black vendors, if you're called on to speak, if you have access to an attorney, speak to that person. Because this is a class action suit, not just regional center of the East Bay, but throughout the whole system. And the state has to be responsible for ensuring that taxpayer dollars are not used to annihilate individuals who are serving a vulnerable population, nor the consumers who need the support and access to agency have the kind of support and aren't racially maligned because of who they are and what family they were born to. And I just hope that this is a catalyst for people to just say, you know what, how bad can it get? At some point, you have to be able to speak up. And if we speak up in the numbers that outnumber those who have just spoken today, the similarities and the stories are going to project what we all know, and that is systematic racism and just the overlooking of not only consumers, but of vendors who actually put their sweat and blood into their businesses to try and provide for, you know, populations and families who need the support. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Marcy. And it looks like I have a comment from Zachary because unfortunately the iPhone doesn't have the audio controls, but it says, I'm a whistleblower at a vendor that reported corruption at its highest level, the regional center, and DDS. My agency was attacked from regional center and DDS, and it's all the same. So that's what Zachary wanted to speak about, but unfortunately, the audio controls are not on the iPhone. We have about 10 minutes left. And I just wanted to see, oh, I have another person, Janette Underhill, who wants to speak, and then we'll probably get ready for a wrap up and maybe some next steps after that. Oh, okay, Zachary, okay.
My hands are up.
Okay, and well, who is that? Was that Miss Alice? Let's see, okay. All right, so Janette, and then after that, the iPad, which I think was Ms. Alice, and Zachary. Okay.
I have my hands up, Geneva. My name is Anne.
Anne?
It says Soreme. I think it should be recorded as it's recording as my email.
Okay.
I just have a comment when they're done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeanette?
Thank you so much, Geneva. Can you all hear me okay? I'm not quite sure about my volume. I just wanted to add my voice to all of the other providers, and I wanted to point to some very specific things, because when we had our meeting last month, I mentioned that a lot of what we're hearing happens at the case management level. And so from one executive to the other, I would like Lisa to look into that. I would like Steve to look into the demographic makeup of providers that get called in to respond to complaints, that get called in to get questioned about their services. I think that it's important that we understand who is referring to who and what is happening in the case management ranks. The lack of follow-up, the lack of case management supervisor follow-up, the lack of timely IPPs coming to providers that then QA comes in and tells us we have a responsibility for pushing the work product of the case managers. I'm not quite sure if those types of things are just related to the ethnicity of the providers, or whether there needs to be, from Lisa and your management team, Lisa, your senior executive management, your middle management, who are your case managers? What kind of training do they have? What kind of diversity training do they have? Do they understand their implicit biases? Do they understand, do people feel comfortable coming to the regional center, whether they're providers, families? How are African-American families treated? I mean, this is so big that I think it really does require you as the head to look at case management. Who's running case management? What is the follow-up? Send a survey to your providers about your case managers. We have to send surveys out every year. Maybe you guys should send surveys to us. Maybe we should be able to give you feedback on our experience with your case management supervisors, and then also this very tenuous and I think sometimes inappropriate intersection with QA. I understand what QA's role is. I think sometimes it gets a little murky. And I know that Michael has done a very effective and continues to be very active in this area. And as a provider, I appreciate that. But I think there needs to also be a distinction between where case management intersects with QA, because I oftentimes think that QA gets used inappropriately as the heavy, when actually their role is to be neutral. And that's not the way they get leveraged at times. I think you as a leader, Lisa, need to look at that. I think that I'd like you to come back to us and tell us what is happening in your case management ranks. What is happening with your case management supervisors? convene a caucus of providers, and I'll be glad to participate in that, that give you that direct feedback experientially, because I believe that what I've heard, it really happens most of the time at that level, whether we're talking about referrals or whether we're talking about the intersection of QA, or whether we're talking about programs being awarded grants and funding. It sort of all centers around this case management level. And I would like to get some responses from the leadership at Regional Center about that. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Janet. And as a few people have pointed out in the chat, the IPP process is another place where there's some concerns about denial of service, supposedly, making sure that consumers are offered the correct services for their issues. And let's see, I have a couple more people in line here. Anne, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you, Geneva. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can everybody hear me? Great. I'm not going to take too much time. I want to just echo what everybody have already said, Wendy, Jeanette, everybody. I would definitely start from what we already know, the George Floyd situation. Being somebody that grew up in a law enforcement home, I was that kid that would go with my dad to work during the summer. If there's something I know about law enforcement is, as an officer, when you're trying to gain compliance, when you're trying to arrest a client, and within the confinement of that client's become someone who's in distress, you're supposed to render aid. And in the George Floyd situation, the gentleman was crying, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." So that officer knew at the time what he was supposed to do and chose not to do it. And we all know how that ended. So with that being said, I would say to Lisa and the management of the regional center to do the right thing. A lot of people have spoken, so I don't even want to go back to that. As providers, we're the one in the trenches. We do the work. And I echo what Wendy said. Having been somebody who works with law enforcement, goes into places where you have to know what you're doing to go into, I echo what Wendy is saying. Just one instant. We're the one doing the work, like I said, we're the one in the trenches. Some case managers see the client once a year to do their review, and you have the guts to pull that client for no reason out of the consumer, and I'm talking from experience, out of the consumer's jurisdiction because you want to take the consumer somewhere else that you want to favor. That's not okay. For me, there's chain of command. If the consumer says, I don't like what this provider is doing, I believe that the regional center has procedures in place that they could follow to say, okay, we've done A, B, C, and D before we pull this provider, this consumer out of this provider's caseload. But it's been done without any prior conversation from case managers to us to say this is what we're doing. I'm going to leave that like that. And then secondly, another thing I want to say is for the RFPs that are going out, we know that Black providers are not getting what we think we should be getting in terms of the proposal is out, you turn in your papers and everything is done. And at the end of the day, if you get an interview, you're lucky. And then you get an email to say, is that how you weren't taken? Or somebody else that has been doing this for a long time, got that grant. Really? Personally, I don't want to speak too much into that. We put in a proposal and you want somebody that has experience in working with and has behavior support clients. You want somebody with forensic population. You want somebody with 10 plus years experience working with this population, and you got it. And that person applied, did the interview, and didn't get the grant, really. I'm going to end that like that. So again, Lisa, what I want to suggest is, I think that what the regional center needs to do is to put a process in place. Maybe do it something closer to the way the state does it, state agency do it, where folks get points and they could see the points and the points of the people that have applied. I think if the regional center could do that, that would cut out favorism in what is going on, because like we know, like I tell my husband sometimes, guess what? There's a parable my mom used to say, you speak, you die, you don't speak, you die, let's speak and die. So obviously, we're running a business for what? 3 years now for community-based program, and you only have less than 10 clients, and you come to meetings where the white folks are telling you they have 60 plus, 100 plus, and they have a wait list. What is going on? I'm going to end it at that. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, thank you. I have one more person left to speak. I have Megan hold up again. And then we'll
Hi, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'll be quick. I know we got to get off this call. I just want to throw a challenge out there to our white providers and our white vendors and say that it's easy to say there should be equality. We're not racist, blah, blah, blah. But we have to acknowledge that if we're going to support the idea that Black vendors are going to get more referrals, that's one less referral for us, and we need to be okay with that. So when we get a referral, we need to go, isn't there a vendor in Oakland that would be a better fit for that client? We need to go, oh, there's someone that does level 4s that is better equipped for this. I think we need to be part of the solution when we get these referrals that we know that we're getting. I mean, we know now that we've acknowledged it, that we're getting it as part of this systemic racist system. We need to start doing what we can to make it more equitable, right? And I think today, what we can do today is we can go back to our agencies and start these conversations. We can talk to our colleagues, we can talk to our directors, and figure out how we can be a part of that solution today, and then be on board when the big changes happen at regional center and statewide. That's all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Megan. I think I see Zach's microphone up. Zach, are you there? Can you unmute? Hello, Zach?
Well, Geneva, as we do in the Black church, can I give my closing statement?
Absolutely.
Before we, okay, so I just want to say, Lisa Kleinberg, you're at the head of an organization. You set the tone for Steve Robinson and everybody that falls. You're at the head. And if the head does not acknowledge, if the head does not take serious that there is a racial discriminatory practice at the regional center when it comes to Black vendors and Black providers, and if you don't set that tone, and if you can't acknowledge it, the people that are under you will not acknowledge it. They will not do anything about it. And as I said earlier, you don't fix what you don't acknowledge. You can't brush it off. You can't say, well, I think it might be a little something that, no. There is racism in the regional center of the East Bay when it comes to Black providers, Black consumers, hands down, no ifs, no ands, no buts. Now, if y'all don't want to do anything about it, that's fine, because I'd rather you stand in front of me and put the knife in my back, because at least I know where I stand. So it's fine if you don't want to do anything about it. But I'm saying we can't do this dance around that maybe it is, maybe it's not, there's got to be some problem. No, there's racism. That is the problem. Megan, that's nice of you, that's sweet of you, that's Christian of you and all of that. But the issue is not with you white providers, because you guys, you're not allocating the federal funds, you're not writing the POSs, you're not the case managers, you guys, so we're not faulting, it's a dog-eat-dog world, as they say out there. People in the regional center. And as I used to say to case managers all the time, when you roll over in bed at night, you don't see my face. What am I saying? You don't have to like me. You don't have to like the Black providers. You don't have to like Black culture. You don't have to any of that. but you gotta respect us, you gotta treat us fair, and there is division in the way you guys do business with Black providers and Black consumers. And Lisa Kleinberg, you set the tone as the head of that agency. I'm through.
Okay.
And I'm not mad.
Right. Thank you, Wendell. I just want to say I really appreciate everyone for taking the time and saying their statements today. I know that it's really hard to discuss issues that you've had personally as well as within the community, all of your experiences. So thank you for everyone who spoke. I have a whole list here of people who spoke today. And this is not the end of this conversation, best believe, okay? We're hoping to work with the regional center management and amongst ourselves as the service providers for the sake of regional center participants. So that being said, if there isn't anything else, we're gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and we'll send out a link to this meeting, the chat, and hopefully have some follow-up in the next couple of weeks in regards to what we're gonna do next, okay?
Okay.
All right.
I put in the chat, but I want everyone to understand I am committed to ending racism in any practice at RCB. And I am committed to doing that, and I may not always do it right, but I want to hear from you, and I am not retaliating against anyone. So I do not believe in that. So that you have my commitment on that, and you can feel free to call me out when there's a problem as well. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yes, as Nancy Holt stated in the chat, you've inherited a huge responsibility, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Really appreciate you taking this on. Thank you so much. Okay, there aren't any further comments. I think we'll go ahead and adjourn. Hope to see you all soon. Thank you and take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.